You've probably heard it before. Generation Z doesn't like to work. Millennials post too much on social media. Boomers are super loyal to brands. These kinds of statements have been repeated so often that we often believe these characteristics and behaviors are natural or even genetic. The belief that these patterns are an absolute truth has become the basis for various business plans, marketing campaigns, and sales strategies. But aren't we oversimplifying issues as complex as human behavior and buying habits? The point here is, does segmenting by generation make sense? Lately, dividing people by generation has become increasingly common. After all, each generation has lived through a unique context, crises, innovations, and specific cultural transformations. Boomers grew up in times of optimism and stability. Generation X saw the emergence of the digital world. Millennials faced the 2008 crisis and the end of certainties. Generation Z grew up amid climate chaos and with access to the internet. These historical references matter, of course, but do they explain how people consume today? The truth is that the generation you are born into is not a decree of behavior and lifestyle. You can be 22 and love pen and paper. You can be 55 and prefer to travel and live experiences rather than own things. Today, consumer choices are shaped by a complex mix of context, access, personal values, identity, technology, and past experience. When we segment solely by age, we risk ignoring essential factors such as social class, regionalism, race, digital literacy, lifestyle, academic degree, mental health, and even completely different life stages among people of the same age. That's a lot of important stuff left out. And the result is what you've already seen out there. Generic campaigns that try to speak to Generation Z, but seem to have been created by a bubble of people who have never had a deep conversation with a 20-year-old. Or brands that think they understand millennials, just because they posted a joke about coffee and bills. It seems assertive, but deep down, it's shallow. The good news is that there are better ways to understand human behavior, whether to deliver products that people really need, improve the user experience, or simply connect with them. But for that, segmentation needs to take a smarter approach based on various microbehaviors and various affinity tribes. Keep that name in mind because we'll be talking about it again soon. In other words, instead of asking, how old is this person? We ask, what do they value? What problems do they want to solve? What kind of content do they consume and where? How do they balance work and personal life? What habits are part of their routine? Today, a 20-year-old vegan gamer may have a lot in common with a 35-year-old lawyer who also plays online games and is vegan. But that gamer may be completely different from another Gen Z young person who hates online games and eats meat 3 times a day. When we look at affinity, context, and repertoire, consumer diversity really starts to make sense. And what does that change for those who create, sell, or communicate? It changes everything. Brands that move away from generationalism and connect with tribes of affinities with real behaviors create more inclusive, honest, and relevant experiences. Rather than making people feel pressured to like things they don't see a purpose in, why try to please an entire generation when we can speak to groups that really share pains, desires, and languages? In other words, more depth, less stereotyping, more real connection, fewer generic trends. So yes, segmenting by generation was useful once, but today it can be limiting. The challenge now is to step outside the age bubble and look at human beings in all their complexity, contradictions, and plurality. That's what we believe here at Super Plural. And you, have you ever fallen into a generational stereotype? Or have you ever been labeled for something that has nothing to do with you? Feel free to share your experience. And if you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. See you next time.